We have a new project, and it's this piece. This was a roadside find. Obviously it is in quite poor condition. It's been cleaned. It's since been sitting in the shop for a bit, so it's a bit dusty. So what we're going to do is, obviously we're not going to be able to save all of the veneer because it's missing some veneer. I'm going to try and save the top. I'm not sure that that's possible, but we're going to try and save the top. Since it's got the inlaid pieces in it, we're going to try and save that top drawer. It's a roadside find. Let's see what we can do with it. It's been neglected. Let's give it some love. Okay, let's get started on trying to get this veneer adhered back down. Just going to take a brush, start trying to get those pieces glued back. I've already scraped under there with my trusty little scraper to be sure that we've got good wood to wood adherence. This is water soluble, so it will come off. Okay, I don't have any clamps that curve, so what we're going to do is we're going to try and tape these drawers down. Alright, I like the way that that piece has gone back down, so let's go ahead and tape it into place. Yeah, it's nice and flush, okay. And then we'll try and get this one next to it done. Alright, I've got it back down. Not feeling that one. Oh, pickles. We're going to let that dry, and then we'll come back and see if we were successful or not. I do believe that someone was hiding their smoking habit and stuck their ashtray in this top drawer of this. So I'm not sure what we're going to do about that, but it obviously didn't work out for them. Luckily, it didn't catch on fire and burn down the house. Now that our glue is dry, we're going to go ahead and remove this tape and see how well we did on this veneer. We're down and solid, but it doesn't feel very smooth at all. So unless we can smooth that down some, I'm not so sure that that's going to work. So let's see what we can do about that now. Okay, so while stripping this piece, I found that there is a small piece right here. You can hear it. That didn't quite glue down when I was doing the veneers, and I can see it moving. So what I'm going to do is take this syringe, and it's got a little bit of Tibon in it, and I'm just going to stick it in here in this little hole and get my Tibon to go in between there. There we go. And now this is a problem with clamping. So here's what I'm going to do. I've got some tie down straps, and I'm going to bring them over here. I've taken the back off the piece. I do that a lot with pieces because I'm able to get in here, do any drawer repairs or anything like that that I need to do. So that's actually helped me out. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put my piece of wood here, and then I'm going to strap this down nice and tight. And that should bring this into contact. These are also taped. They're just taped with Terek, which is really great. Okay, so we're just going to put our strap there. We've hooked it to the bottom. Just going to hold that in place. So when you don't have a clamp big enough or round enough, this is one way to overcome. Now that the glue should be dry under here, we're going to release this and see if it worked. Yeah, so we're nice and solid. So I think that we're ready to get this ready for paint. I'm kind of still undecided on color. The only thing that I do know is that that top drawer with all of that inlaid wood, I want to keep natural. So I'm just going to keep prepping this. I think one of the next steps that we're going to have to do is we're missing so much veneer from the other drawers. The top one looks pretty good. It's in reasonable shape, so we can leave that alone.
Sadly, at this point, owing to some technical stupidity, we lost the audio. Being married as long as we have, we share somewhat of a telepathic bond. So the point Rhea's trying to make here, she's trying to draw people's attention to the obvious werewolf damage to this drawer here. So you can see this drawer also was damaged by the same werewolf. Fortunately, it's well known that werewolves are scared of inlaid wood, so the top drawer survived unscathed.
So we're going to remove, the veneer off of these drawers. And what I have here is some wet towels. I've just dampened them. And we're going to do a little ironing. Do not attempt this with your iron that you use on on clothes. But I'm just going to steam this. And this is one way that you can remove veneer. And what it's doing is it's just reactivating that adhesive that the veneer is on with. Then take your putty knife, get it under an edge. And just start taking it off that way. And you'll get your shop towels cleaned or ironed up nicely that way too. Now, I always save veneer because you never know when you might need to do a veneer repair. So for me, the fact that it comes off in nice big pieces like this really does help. Because that way, if I've got to do a veneer repair, then I've got a nice big piece to use here. I'm just going to keep working my way down this piece. Nice big pieces. And some of you now will be able to remove veneer and save it to use on other projects in the future. If you found this helpful, please remember to hit the like and subscribe button. It really does help us with the YouTube algorithm, and we appreciate your support so much. So let's get on with the rest of removing this veneer, and then we'll get to the fun stuff. Now it's time to deal with the top of this piece. You could scrape it, but I'm gonna strip it instead. And so I'm just gonna take my stripper, and I use a chemical stripper. I don't use citrus strip, I use the heavy duty stuff. So, and we're just gonna put it on there and keep it wet. That is the key to getting stripper to work. No matter what kind of stripper it is, you have to keep it wet. If you don't, then your stripper's drying your shellac back on. So, okay, and I've just got a box. I put it in the top of the drawer there. And that way my stripper will just go into there. Ooh, yucky. Now, usually the first layer of stripper is just taking off that varnish. You could use denatured alcohol, remove that top layer of varnish first, and then go straight to stripping. Now I'm just going to wipe it down with denatured alcohol and see where we're at in this process. And remember, when you get done with the rags that you use, lay them flat outside. That way they'll dry and not cause a fire. You will want to do this in a well-ventilated area, probably with a mask, because if you're using a chemical stripper, they've got some noxious fumes, and you'll end up with a tremendous headache. And that's one reason that people like to use citrus strip. I'm not a big fan, but the fumes don't really affect me as badly as they do some people. And I really want to try hard to keep this drawer because that inlaid wood there is just lovely. Just lovely. Somebody spent some time doing that, and I want to try and preserve that. Gonna give it another good dose of stripper. Now, a lot of people will tell you to put cellophane or saran wrap, plastic wrap, whichever country you live in, whatever you call it, over stripper while it's wet, and it'll keep it wet. But if you do that with a chemical stripper, it'll just dissolve the plastic. So kind of doesn't do you any good to do that with this. I've tried it. It didn't go well. The edges still have a little bit of varnish, a little light scrape. And that comes right off. A lot of people wonder how to sand into the grooves on these pieces, but rather than stripping and sanding all that down, all I have to do is just run my scraper along. You can see it does quite a good job. I think it's by Hyde. I'm not sponsored by them, but this is one of those must-have tools that once you have it, you're going to wonder, how did you ever live without it? I like this one because it did come with so many different tools. There's a little thin one, but then it comes with a nice big round one, and they're all double-sided. So like I say, once you get it, you're going to wonder, how did you ever live without this tool? So and there's a link to it in the description. All right, we've just glued a little bit more on these edges, and what we've done is just use palette knives to get under there and put glue up under there all the way across to about here, because I noticed that yesterday when I was stripping it down that there was some loose pieces here on the front. So we've just worked that glue in up to about here, and now we're just gonna go ahead and clamp that down and get it to glue down. Okay, so we got these stripped of their veneer, and we've sanded them down, and they have a lot of little imperfections and holes. Probably, I'm not sure what from, but the wood is quite old, so it was probably there whenever these were actually manufactured. And so we're just going to fill them with Bondo. So I've got my Bondo board all sanded down and clean. And we're just going to go ahead, mix some Bondo up, and start filling the holes on these. I prefer to use Bondo because there's no shrinkage. So usually I can do it in one application rather than if I were to use a wood filler. Wood filler shrinks, and therefore you've got to go back and usually fill more than once unless you overfill and then sand quite a bit. And Bondo dries much quicker. Oops, didn't mean to fill that one. We're going to keep the original hardware. The original hardware is lovely on this piece. I had taken it off months ago to get it cleaned up, but it is lovely hardware. These holes are so small that basically you're just putting it on and just scraping it right back off. It's basically just a skim. Now that the Bondo is dry and we've got it all sanded down, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put a primer on these. And I'm going to use 123. It's tinted, and I believe I'm going to paint these black, so a tinted primer will be best. They are oak, but I don't think there'll be much bleed through, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to use that. Just going to give it a good stir. And I'm just going to roll this on. We've already wiped these drawers down, so we're ready to prime. I would love to have kept the natural wood of these, but with all those little holes that we filled, the Bondo just will not stain, and so it's best just to go ahead and prime and paint it. Sometimes if you're doing black or navy, gray, a tinted primer works best, and some of the paint departments in Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever DIY shop you use, if you ask them, sometimes they can tint it, and I just tell them to tint it as dark gray as they can, and then that way usually I'm okay with black or navy or whatever. Priming it gives you a peace of mind that whatever product you choose to use to paint with, it will have good adhesion. It also lets you look that piece over and see if there's any little holes that you missed that you didn't fill, or divots or rough spots, things like that that you might not pick up on until you've already painted, and at that point sometimes it's just too late to fix it. Black is the most unforgiving color ever, and if it's not perfect when you start, it's not gonna get any better. It's only gonna show up worse. So I suggest priming because that helps you to find mistakes before they happen.
So the piece we have to replace goes to support this second drawer down. Obviously they've all got these support beams on the back, so what we're going to have to do is add a new one in here. It looks like it's been broken off. You can see it's mortised in there. So what I've done is I've measured it all up, and I've came up with this piece of wood. So that should fit the mortise on the right hand side. And then for the left hand side, I've oversized it. So the plan is we're going to remove the back of this here. That way we can slot our piece in and hopefully it's a good fit. And I'd say that's quite a lovely repair.
So we're back, back and we're working on this Art Deco dresser, and it's come back from Alex. Had to take it to him because it was missing a rail here and a rail here. Had been worn down so much that the drawer wasn't actually sitting on the rail, so he had to add some wood there, and the back of the drawer here was missing, so he had to make a new one, which made the drawers just kind of tilt slightly. So now that that's all done, we can pull all this off. Everybody's got a different theory for why you paint or stain. I think it's personal preference as to which one you want to do first. Me, I stain first so that if I'm putting stain on, I don't mess up my paint. So you just have to choose which one you would rather do first or last. I'm just using some espresso no pain gel stain on the parts of this that we are keeping wood. I think it'll do well with the black. And I'm just putting it on with just a towel. Nothing fancy. This stain is very forgiving. Alright, this is where the rubber's going to meet the road here. Oh, let's hope that this is not too dark. And this makes for a bad day. I just did those nails. Because of these, the inlaid wood, I am concerned that the stain going over this might make it too dark. So I'm going to try and tape this off. Wish me luck. Alright, and then I'm going to stain the outside of them first, and then I'll reverse my tape and I'll stain the other side, and hopefully be able to preserve this pretty little inlay. I'm so pleased with that, because that's just making that design pop. I mean pop. Oh, I'm loving it, loving it. We're going to go ahead, and now that we have these drawers for this Art Deco dresser all primed, we're going to go ahead and get them taped up and get them painted. Now, usually when I paint drawers, I paint them on the piece. Well, a lot of times I do. Not usually, but a lot of times I do. But this one, I'm not going to do that simply because I've got a mixture of wood and paint that I'm doing on this piece. So I don't want my wood to have paint on it. I'm just taping up these drawers so that they don't get overspray inside of them. I felt like that one needed more tape on the front. Don't know why. All right, now we've got the drawers painted, or at least the first coat on. Now we take a look at the body. And that's the top drawer, and I think it's looking pretty good. Other three will be black, sides will be black as well, and I think that'll blend together nicely. So we're gonna go ahead and we're going to put a shellac on the Art Deco dresser that we're working on. And what I have here is a 1/2 pound cut, stolen from Alex's shop, but don't tell. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to do a really thin coat and seal it, and then we'll go back and do a thicker coat. I've cut a piece of cheesecloth and just some white cotton, like from a t-shirt, and I'm just going to fold that up and put it in here and make a little dauber ball. Just gonna make a dauber ball. Just spin that around. Okay. Be sure you wear your gloves. You'll end up with sticky hands. Just gonna get our dauber ball wet, and then just wipe over. Nice thin coats. And we're just going to do the rest of the piece the same way, wherever we've stained. Just following the wood grain. So we're ready to do the second coat, and the second coat we're doing a little bit thicker cut of shellac, and we've sanded with a very, very, very well used 220. This thing is so well used, it's probably softer than my hands are. But just enough to take out any dust particles or little nibs in there, and then wipe it down real good with a tack rag or a cloth that's clean, and then you're ready to do your next coat of shellac. And this coat, like I say, it's going to be a little bit thicker coat. And what I did is I just took the bullseye shellac that you would buy from one of the big box stores, and did 100 mil or 50 mil of that, and then about 25 mil of denatured alcohol to thin it down some. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Well, let's make a save here. Might as well have a nicely shellac top shelf. Oh, I'm glad that's on film. That always looks so professional. Well, at least my floor is now nicely shellacked. Might as well get those rails. No point in wasting that. Might as well make it look like I'm into it. Oh, that smells lovely. Ah. Well, at least it looks nice and clean, doesn't it? If it starts dragging, then you'll know that you need to put more shellac on your little dauber. The floors in my shop are sloped, which makes things sometimes a bit more interesting. But they slope for the sump pump and the floor. But sometimes it's a bit annoying. Usually you would want to go with wood grain, but on this it's just a bit more interesting. Okay, so now that we've got the shellac done, what we're going to do is we're going to take some 4/0 steel wool and we're going to give this just a light steel wool buff for the final, and then that will be us all done. I'm going to do the same thing to the top drawer, just a light going over with some steel wool, and we're just taking off any of those nibs, any dust. Oh, beautiful, feels amazing. And look at those diamonds, look at that inlay, that just pops, so pretty. And what we're going to do is we're going to paint in here black, so I'm going to tape this off and then we'll get that painted. We have the original hardware from the Art Deco piece, and if we look, it's got kind of an orangey red here, and they're really quite cool. They're not Bakelite, but they do have some Bakelite around the top drawer pieces. Down here, this was copper colored. This was more of an orangey red color. So what I've done is I've mixed some colors in acrylics, and I've mixed a red and a copper, and I think I've got this color pretty well matched. And then I've got a copper that we can do down here. So we're just going to go ahead and try and paint these, hopefully by hand. I think I can do that and get their original pretty color back. I got really lucky for a side of the road piece to have the original hardware still on it. I don't know how I got that lucky. I was just playing with it to see if I could get the right color, and it was like, oh, there it is. Better use it while I got it. Now we've got a second brush, and I'll go ahead and do the copper as well while I'm painting. Now these are just an acrylic from Hobby Lobby, and what I'll do is I will seal these with a clear coat whenever I'm done, just to be sure that everything stays in place. So I'm just going to take my time, finish these up, and I will let you see them whenever we're done. Okay. Alright, we'll get that sealed up, and I think that looks pretty good. Might do it a little bit more of the copper. Alright, so we got the shellac finish on this piece that Alex made us, and it looks pretty good. But the one thing that I do notice is that it's a bit too shiny. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some steel wool and just give it a going over with steel wool, and that'll tone it down. It also is going to make it nice and smooth. It'll feel so lovely. Alright, there's one more thing we're going to do to bring this piece together. And we're going to put a little detail on this piece. Okay. I'm just going to get some E6000